coming home on tomorrow. Yes, so he's there. He's in the hospital now. He's listening. He's learning Torah. Okay. Anyway, we saw yesterday the halacha that of the tamid when the carbon tamid is brought. We saw it vis-a-vis a regular day, 8.5 hours, 9.5 hours. Erev Pesach, 7.5 hours. On Friday, 6.5 hours. And clearly nothing was brought after the carbon tamid, right? Nothing was brought after the carbon tamid, right? We had the limud from the Aleha Hashlamim, and we said, okay, so now we're going to go ahead and focus on that a little bit. How do you know that after the carbon tamid, at the end of the day, that's it, that no other carbon is brought? So we're up to Nun Ches Amid Beis. Nun Ches Amid Beis. We're going to begin about 10 lines to the bottom. Tan Rabbanan. Tan Rabbanan. Minayin Shalo Yehi Dav Koydem. L'Tan Yishel Shacher. We're beginning in the morning. How do you know the first carbon of the day is a carbon tamid? Now there are avoiders that are done before that. There's Trumas Hadesh, and there's things that are done before that. But the first carbon, how do you know the first carbon blood offering? How do you know the first one is brought? It's nothing before the carbon tamid. Talmud Lamed says v'orach aleha ha'oila, and they should set on it the oila, the oila, right? My Talmud. Where do you learn from that pasuk that the first thing of the day is the carbon tamid? Talmud Lamed Amarava ha'oila, oila rishayna. Ha'oila, the oila, the hey hayidiyah, the oila rishayna. Uminayin, and how do you know? Uminayin, how do you know? She'ein dava karav achet tamish ben abayim. This is what we are interested in. Not that we're not interested in everything, but this is the concern of our Mishnah. How do you know that the beginning of the day ha'oila, the end of the day is the tamid. Tamid. We have bookend tmidim and everything in between. Correct? Bookend tmidim, tamid of the morning, tamid ben abayim, and everything in between. So how do you know what? How do you know at the end of the day that nothing else is brought afterwards? It says Talmud Lamed v'hikta halaha chelve ashlamim. You should be makter on it, on the carbon tamid chelve, the fats of the shlamim. Now pashtus the shlamim means a carbon shlamim. Now my Talmuda, how do you see from here that that's the last carbon of the day? How do you see from here that's the last carbon of the day? Amar Abaya, it says aleha shlamim v'lo al cheverasa shlamim. On it is the shlamim, and not any other carbon is a shlamim, right? So now the pashtus is that it's speaking about a carbon shlamim. So Fred the Gemara, if that's the case, maskla rava ema shlamim hudloi nakriv. A shlamim you can't bring after the carbon tamid. Ha'oila nakriv, or with carbon oila you could after the carbon tamid. Ella, guys, we're switching. Don't you read the word as shlamim, but as the shirish shlamim, to be mishalem, to pay up, to finish up. Says the Gemara. Ella Amar Rava, says Rava, hashlamim aleha hishlim. On it, hishlim is completed. Called karbonis kulan. So it's a play on words. It's not the carbon shlamim. It's hishlim. We're completing what? We're completing the bringing of the carbon. So therefore, we now ha'oila teaches me the carbon tamid in the morning, and hashlamim on it shlamim we finish what? We finished everything. So that's the limit over here. Okay, turn around. A lot of brises today, guys. Limudim today, and we're going to get a lot of yediyas and kachim that again, kachim is the school of remembering. By the way, they say guys in yeshiva who have bad memories, they told them in Europe, they come to learn kachim. The kachim is a school. For some reason, I remember kachim better also. Now my memory's not bad, but not as good as it used to be. But stop with the briskets, Yankel. Return this red message. Turn on, especially with your rabbi. Kaidim lepesach, right? Tamid kaidim lepesach. In other words, the tamid abein abayim comes before the Pesach. That's one of the uniqueness of the carbon Pesach. It's brought after the tamid, right? We said everything is hishlam on that. Carbon Pesach's brought on that. It's a pretty unique thing, right? The carbon Pesach's brought on that. Tamid shal bein abayim kaidim lepesach. Tamid comes before the Pesach. Pesach kaidim leketayris. The Pesach will come before the ketayris. Now they brought ketayris twice, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So the Pesach came before the ketayris, and ketayris kaidemis l'neiros. And the lighting menorah, ketayris came first. So let's get the pecking order. Tamid, right? Tamid, ketayris, haktaris of the menorah. That would be the pecking order.
Couldn't it be done simultaneously?
The Getaris and never the Getaris and the Neiros cannot be at the same time.
No, but Getaris and the Kabbalah.
What? No, it was earlier.
What was inside
Again, you can't bring the Getaris till you bring it. It's a limud. You can't bring the Getaris before. Could you physically do it? Yes. Could you physically do it? Yes. Is there a limud to tell me no? Yes. The Getaris and the Neiros were done simultaneously. Could not be done. If you did one, you couldn't do the other. I'll speak out Bez Hashem something I heard. We'll get to the end of the show. I'll speak out of some slave from Pashas Ba'aloisva. Anyway, Bez Hashem. So turn about it. Tell me, Pesach, Ketaris, the Ketaris, Kedemis, the Neiros, and the Ketaris comes before the Neiros. Now, why? Let's go ahead and delay something that it says be'erev and bein arbayim. It only says bein arbayim. Says Rashi. Time of the Reisha come afarish. We're coming to explain Korban Tamid Kodim the Pesach. Why does the Korban Tamid come before the Pesach? Right? Why does the Korban Tamid come before the Pesach? The din hu sheyuchra Pesach. The din is the Pesach should be delayed because it says two lashonis. Shenema arbay bo erev 1 ubein arbayim 2. Where do you see that? In the Torah it says Tizbach es Pesach be'erev 1, bring the Korban Pesach be'erev in the evening. Then it says with Shachar esoi bein arbayim, as opposed to L'tamid where it just says Esakeres Hasheni Taseh bein arbayim. So if I have one that says bein arbayim and erev, and I have one that says bein arbayim, so obviously erev bein arbayim, I want it erev later on. Later on, I want it later than the bein arbayim. So the by the Tamid where it says bein arbayim is one thing. By the Pesach where it says a lashon of bein arbayim and erev, which is mashma evening, right later on. So therefore, we have a limit for the Pesach being after the Tamid. What?
That you bring that every day. It should come by naturally before the current Pesach.
I think that you say Tamid when it's a chiyuv at the same time, right? When it's a chiyuv at the same time, right?
Specific days. Shabbos and Yom Tov, but not the weekday and Yom Tov.
Okay, anyway, Heshi's asking Taisus Kash. Look at the top Taisus. Look at the top Taisus. Yuchad Davar, Afagav the Tamid Tadir. Even though the Tamid is Tadir, meaning, and let's say the concept of Tadir V'Shen Tadir Kaidem, it's Tzrich L'Michtiv. Hava Amina She Pesach Yakdim Mishum Aloha Hashlam. Okay, very good shmak. We have a pasuk that says Aloha Hashlam. Yes? What is the pasuk mashma? That the Korban Tamid is the last game. Good. Allah Hishlim. Guys, listen up. Allah Hishlim, right? So the Chiddush is that the Pesach should be bought afterwards or before. The Chiddush is that it's bought after, right? Right. So what are you going to say? What? Tadash and Tada Kaidim bring the Tamid first. I would say no. Bring the Pesach first. Why? Because we have a pasuk saying the opposite of Tadir. The pasuk says Allah Hishlim on the Korban Tamid. That should be the completion. So the pasuk tells you don't say Tadir. Tadir is when you don't know, right? So over here, the Chiddush is that the Pesach comes afterwards. Obviously, the Tadir should come first. Is the Pesach because the Tamid should be the last thing. So Tadir would be the opposite. So it says that you can't say Tadir over here. You can't say Tadir over here because the svara is that what? The svara is that it should be the last thing. Very good kasha, very good. Place the kasha. Okay.
But he doesn't answer it.
He did answer it. I did. Chaim, listen up.
Yeah. So why don't you bring it after?
What?
Why don't you bring the?
Because we have a limud erev bein arbayim to bring the Pesach afterwards. Freg Heshi. Tadir with Tadir you can come up to the same place. And for Taisus, no. Right. Because since Allah Hishlam, I would say you don't say Tadir. It's not for the pasuk, right? Okay, so you did answer Kasha, right? You got it? Good. Fred Gemar Ihachi. If you're telling me where it says one Erev Ben Abayim is later and one Ben Abayim is earlier, Ketaris and Neris Nami, Nikadmu LePesach, then Ketaris and Neris shouldn't be bought after the Korban Pesach. Yuchad Davish Nema by Erev Ben Abayim the Korban Pesach. LeDavish Shloi Nema by Ella Ben Abayim Bovad. It says, guys, it says by the Neris, the lashon is V'halas Aranis Neris Ben Abayim Yakdi Rena. Good. When does he light it? Bein Rabbayim Yaktirena, right? So what did we say comes first? The Pesach or the menorah and the Ketores? Pesach, guys. Tamid, Pesach, Ketores, Neiros. Good. Fred the Gemara. If you're telling me the Pesach sport afterwards, because it says a double, an Erev and a Ben Abayim, and by Korban Tamid it only says Ben Abayim. By menorah and Ketores it also says only one Ben Abayim. So it should be when? Before the Pesach. Yet it's after the Pesach. So why afterwards? After Gemara Shani Hasam, the Miyat Rachmana Oisai, because it says Miyat Oisai. There's a Miyat Oisai, the Tanya. Me Erevad Baiker, when it says he should light it. Me Erevad Baiker, from the morning till the evening. Two halachas, guys. One, Tainla Midasa Shadei Delekas Me Erevad Baiker. Put in enough oil that it can burn from the Erev to from the evening till the morning. And Davar Acher, this is what we need. Ein lecha avoda shekeshera me Erev ad Baiker. There is no avoda that's kosher from the morning until the evening. Elazu bilvad. Right, the only one that's kosher from the morning to the evening is what is Ela is Zubavad. Right. Yeah, no, I said Erev to Baiker. Okay, my timer, Amakra, Yarach Oisai Aroinu Banov me Erev ad Baiker. Then what's the limit, guys? What we need? Oisai me Erev ad Baiker. That the burning of the menorah is me Erev ad Baiker. But there's nothing else that comes me Erev ad Baiker, so the Pesach can't come afterwards, right? It can't. You guys, this is the one that goes, guys, from that time span me Erev ad Baiker. But the Pesach can't be brought afterwards because nothing else can be me Erev ad Baiker. So right now it's all limudim. It's limudim. So again, let's go through the order. Korban Tamid, right? We said, even despite the fact that it says Aloha Hishlim, on it should be the last game in town. Right? On it should be the last game in town. On that, we say that what? No, we said that the Korban Pesach, it says Erev and Bein Rabbayim. By Talmud, it only says Bein Rabbayim once, Pesach's later. Why is the menorah and the Ketores after the Pesach? Also, it only says one Bein Rabbayim there. So that we're answering, we have a special limud that is Me'ucher because it says Me Erev ad Baiker. That's the only thing that's Me'erev ad Baiker, and nothing else beyond that goes Me'erev ad Baiker. Now, that's by the menorah. The Ishkis Ketores and the Neiros, and we make a hekesh between the Ketores to the Neiros. The Tanya okay. Now, the Tanya, we have another brisa Kikushin, meaning that the Pesach will come after, that they'll come first. Guys, we have another brisa like a kasha. Since it only says one Bein Arbayim, by Ketores and Menorah, it's going to come before the Pesach, which it says what? Erev and Bein Arbayim. The Tanya Kikushin, Tamid Kaidem the Ketores. Ketores Kaidemis the Neiros. The Neiros Kaidemis le Pesach. In other words, we have a brisa that Taka says like the kasha, because it says Erev and Bein Arbayim by Pesach. We'll do it what? We'll do it the last thing, even after the Ketores and the Menorah. Yu'ucha Dava, let's delay the matter. Shenema by Erev Bein Arbayim. Now, what's the obvious question? I saw in the Erev ad Baiker, right? You have the limud that the first limud said that's why it goes after the Pesach. I saw in the Erev ad Baiker, vein davarach in the Erev Baiker. Says, but no, I need that limud for different limud. That any avoida inside it should not come before, after the what? After the Neiros. Umayni, what's the avodas inside that comes after the Neiros? It's Ketores. Sakdet Ramina. Hoyel v'ksiv ubahali samanis ha-Neiros. Ben Rabbayim. Yaktirena. And Yaktirena says afterwards, and Nakjeres, Eman Nadlik Neiros Beresha, V'hadanat Ketores, Mia Rachmana, Oisoi. Therefore it says Oisoi. Okay, so now, let's take, why did we just say? Guys, why did we just say? Don't worry, I'm not asking you, I'm going to tell you. So why did we just say? We just said the following. We had a first brisa that went through the following. Here's the order of things. You have the Korban Tamid, the Korban Pesach, the Ketores, and the Neiros. That's what we said. And as we said, what came first was what? Was the Korban Tamid. Allah Hishlim, and afterwards we have a limud Pesach. Why? Erev Ben Abayim. And then we have a Miyad Oisai, Erev Abayke. The last thing you do is what? Is the Menorah, and therefore the Keteris comes for it. Good. Now we have a Brisa saying, no, you're right. Einachinami. That aspect of Erev and Ben Abayim is so prominent, it'll go ahead and delay that what? The last avodah you're going to do is the Pesach. So again, Allah Hishlim, that refers to what? That refers to the carbon tamid. After that, you're going to do the Ketairis, and after that, you're going to do the Neiros. And after that, and since it only says by the Neiros and Ketairis, one Bein Rabayim, you're going to do the carbon Pesach afterwards, because it says Erev and Bein Rabayim. Now, it says I saw Me'av Abayka. No, I don't have that limit. I don't have that limit. I have a different limit. I saw meaning giving my druthers anything inside, any avodah that's done inside, meaning inside the heichel, such as burning the ketairis on the mizbeach hazav and lighting the menorah. On that, Oisoi is going to be the last. But in Achinami, it's not the last thing done because the carbon pesach is brought outside the heichel, right? It's brought in the azara by the mizbeach, and that's the limit so far. Now, the question is, if that's the case, Ella bein rabayim yaktiren l'omali. It's mashma after you go ahead and light the neiros, then yaktirenu you should go ahead and burn the ketairis. But you're telling me now also teaches me you don't do that. L'omali hachi kamarachmana. Beidon de madlekes neiros. When the time you light the neiros, hey maktara ketairis. The ketairis already should be from before, burnt from before. When you light the neiros, it has to be burnt from before. It's the menorah. It's like the menorah.
Once you do that,
Not, yeah, that's the last avoid inside there because the Pesach can be before. So I heard from Shleib once, and he said a very nice pshat. He's very big on the Chassam Sleifa. He's like mamish fakisha for the Chassam Sleifa. He said that the first Teres Moshe, is the sefer of the Chassam Sleifa on Chumash, and he writes there in Parshas Ba'aleischa that Aaron Avinu, Aaron HaKohen, he would go ahead and he would always light the menorah. From the time he started lighting, he never stopped to tell us his cheshivas. So when's cheshivas? Hashem spoke to Aaron. So he says very, very geschmack. The Gemara in Yuma tells us there were different lotteries for different services in the Beis Hamikdash for the Kahanim. The Kahanim, when it came to the Ketairis, what's the halacha Chaim? How many chances do you get? One chance. Why Chaim?
that's it.
Why?
Make money.
Shiras. It's a school of Shiras. Guys, that's by the way, by the Sandik. Why does Sandik get a bracha? The Sandik is considered is the Mizbeach. So therefore you go to the Sandik to the bracha because he is like you burn the Ketairis once. That's the reason for it. Yeah. That's the Talmud. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so says a geschmack. You see from here that the Yulta Neiros, the Ketairis, they couldn't be simultaneous. They had, if you did one, you couldn't do the other. The time you light in the neighbors, the Ketairis had to be there. One you couldn't do the other. It had to be at different times. So Mamela, you think Aaron would say one day, listen, let's be really geschmack. I've been lighting the menorah ganz fine all the time, right? What's the school of Neiros? You have sons that Tamid Chachamim. Every man should help his wife with hadlakas neiros, right? They set up the licht, they light them, they blow them out, whatever they do. They put the oil in, everyone has the minig. It's Gemara in Chanukah. We said the Gemara in Shabbos. If you help with the neiros, you'll have a son Tamid Chachamim. So here's Aaron. He's been lighting this there. Listen, I got Tamid Chachamim, I got to support him Koilel. Let's make a few bucks. So why don't you go ahead, take off and go what? And do the Ketairis to get a few bucks? No. Aaron, that was the chiyuv of Aaron. He was only interested in one thing. He wasn't interested in Gashmis. He was only interested in his sons being Tamid Chachamim. So the fact that he went ahead and lit all the time, he had a choice. Because he couldn't do it simultaneously. No, he stayed within the parameters of lighting the menorah.
We need to give it up one time.
He didn't even want you to give it up, right? And that's what it says the chavivus of Aaron was. That was the chavivus of beautiful part. It's the first Teres Moshe and Parshas Ba'aleischa. It's very geschmack. Okay, so you have again in Kachim, guys, you have an understanding of the orders of things. This is the way it always is. The last thing they did b'fnim is on every normal day. was what? Was lighting the menorah. On Pesach, well, Pesach, that's different. Pesach is a different bria. Okay, says the Gemara Vayta. Tan Rabbanan. Tan Rabbanan. Ein lecha dava, there's nothing shekoidim l'tamid shel shachar. There's nothing that comes before the tamid shel shachar. In the morning, right? That's the first thing. Again, in the kabbanis department. In the kabbanis department, there's nothing that comes before that. Right? Nothing comes before that. El kataris bilvad. Right? Only kataris. The kataris in the morning could come before that. Shenema ba boiker. It says a double boiker. The yuktam kataris. Dava shenema ba boiker. The chsiv hiktav Aaron. Right? Kataris samim ba boker. The dava shleinema by ela boiker echad. And the dava shemis akava. Okay, so guys, it says by the carbon tamid that what you should in the morning. It says boiker. By the Tyrus, it says boker. So it's the same thing. Erev bein abayim was the last thing by Pesach. Boker gave me the earliest time what by what by the Tyrus. Okay. Only thing that was after the Tamid Shel Bein Abayim was the Tyrus and the Neres. Upesach, and now new halacha. Umechusa Kippurim. Okay, Mikusa Kippurim, be'erev Pesach, shetoivel shenis, va'oichles pischoi le'erev. Okay, well let's again. We've come across Mikusa Kippurim many times, but it's repetition. If a person has a tumah that emanates from their body, right? A woman is ledes, she gives birth. A man's a zav, a woman's a zava, a mitzayra. All these things. It's internal tumah. They didn't get it from an external source. They didn't get it from touching a mesa, touching a sheretz. It came from internally, right? Those people is the most severe tumah, and it's not enough to go to the mikvah. In order to go ahead and eat kachim, they have to go ahead and bring a carbon. Good? They have to bring a carbon. So let's say you're dealing with a person who it's Pesach time. They didn't bring their carbon. Right before the carbon tamid shel bein abayim. If they don't bring their kapara, they're missing out on the carbon Pesach. Says this brisa that person mechusa kippurim would be able to go to the mikvah a second time, be oichel es pischoi le'erev, and he would be able to eat his Pesach in the morning.
Be part of the reservation.
He could be counted in, no problem. And he can come and eat it.
Because he counted in while he's still tummy.
Okay.
Because he anticipates being.
Yes.
I don't know if you said this thing, Shiloh, the Geshe Taval, where they could eat the carbon Pesach.
Again, it's Shiloh. Okay.
Same idea.
Again, similar idea. Let's see Rashi here, guys. Let's see Rashi over here. Mechusa Kippurim, Kigoin, Mitzayra Oizav, Sheshachach, he forgot, right? V'leihevi kaparasai koydin letamid, he did not bring his carbon before the carbon tamid. V'im lo yeviena, and if he doesn't bring it after the tamid, lo yochel Pesach, he won't be able to eat from the carbon Pesach. Why? The Mechusa Kippurim asa b'kachim, Mechusa Kippurim is asa b'kachim, v'einish karis, and if he would eat it, it's like even though he's very much tahar, le'inyan truma. You hear the guys? Le'inyan truma, he was a kohen, he could eat it. Le'inyan maisa, he could eat it. He was Yisrael. Le'inyan kachim, he's tamei, and he'd be chayiv kares. That's a huge chiddush, right? So here's the chiddush over here. So he goes to the mikvah, and then they would go ahead and they bring the carbon to allow him to eat the carbon Pesach. That's the Tanakama. Back in the Gemara.
They went to the mikvah.
He went to the second time. Shayness, the second. They went the second time. The Gemara says the second time. Right.
They still had to bring his kippurim.
Yeah. No. I think he's saying it because he was full yon already before he's Mechus Kippurim. So he went to the mikvah once.
Right,
Now he goes to the mikvah second time. So now, Rabbi Shmuel ben Ashel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika Aimer, Af Mechus Kippurim b'Shar Yemos Hashana. Forget about the Korban Pesach, guys. Even the rest of the days of the year. Shetoivel v'oichel kachim le'erev. He could be toivel and eat kachim in the evenings. Says Rashi. Let's see Rashi. B'shayim Hashana. Imhevi shalmei nedava. If he brought his carbon shlamim, a donation, a carbon shlamim, koydem atamid, v'hu hayim mechusik kippurim, and he is mechusik kippurim, from loyavi kaparasai. And if he doesn't bring his kapara, he's a zav, he's a mitzayra, and he doesn't bring it, he won't be able to eat loyachel es shlamav. He won't be able to eat his carbon shlamim. In other words, we're just interchanging the word shlamim for Pesach. D'chsiv v'achlo esam asher kupa behem. And he eats it, and he gets kapara in it. Al machilas kachim asehu. It's a mitzvah to eat kachim when it's mechusik kippurim. Bein anachon lekahanim, bein anachon lYisrael. Okay, so now says Rabbi Shmuel ben Ol that if a person brings his carbon tamid and he won't be able to eat the carbon tamid, and there's a mitzvah to eat the carbon tamid, there's rate on this, he would be able to bring his kapara after the tamid. Despite the fact we said the tamid is the last thing in the day, we have a machloikis. Tanakam says only by the Pesach would we go ahead and give him the heter to bring his kapara. Again, he's bringing a carbon, guys. A mechusa kippurim, kippurim means a carbon. A zav has to bring a carbon. A mitzayra has to bring a carbon. They have to bring karbanos. A zava, yoledes have to bring karbanos. They're after the tamid. Why? Because they're going to miss out on something. The first price says they're going to miss out on what? Eating the carbon Pesach. The second price says even if he bought a carbon nedava, even if he bought not a Pesach, before the Tamid, and now he's mechusik kippurim, he will be able to bring his carbon after the Tamid in order to allow him to eat his carbon shlamim, even though it's a nedava, because it's a mitzvah to eat kachim. Right. The second pshat Ari has nothing to do with Pesach. But again, it's the same idea. We'll let you bring a carbon post tamid in order to eat kachim. Good. Okay, so, guy, what's the idea? Mechusik kippurim, someone who has tumah that emanates from the body. What's the idea? Even though he went to the mikvah, and even though he can eat truma if it's a kayin, and even if it's a yisrael, he can eat maisa. He can't go ahead and eat kachim until he brings his carbon. And this goes ahead and impacts by Pesach, or even by a carbon shlum that he bought. We're all good? Good. So now, Bishlei Milatana Kamu says it's speaking about Pesach. Yavai Asay, we say, let the Asay, the Pesach, Sheyesh Bakaris. Guys, it's a mitzvah to eat the carbon Pesach. If you don't bring the carbon Pesach, you chayiv kares. If you don't bring the chayiv, it's one of two mitzvahs Asay in the Torah that you chayiv kares for. One, Mila, if you don't do a Bismillah, and two, carbon Pesach. So now, Yovei Esei de Pesach, Sheyesh Bakaris, V'yitzcha Esei da Shlama. Allah Hishlam, guys. It's a mitzvah essay to complete the avodah of the day with a carbon tamid. That it's a mitzvah. Allah Hishlam on it what with mashlam. So you have a mitzvah essay of karis, of eating the carbon Pesach. You have a mitzvah essay of the tamid being the last game in town. Which one has precedence? The chorus. So I understand the first brisa. Why would we allow the mechusik kippurim to be brought after being mevatel the tamid in order to initiate and keep the carbon Pesach? Ella says, Ella, the Rabbi Shmuel ben Ashvav Breika that says afilu what by regular kachim, a regular nedava, my only hayasei of eating kachim, may hayasei of completing the tamid. You shouldn't have anything after the tamid. It's a mitzvah say, right? It's a mitzvah say to eat kachim. If you don't eat the kachim, you're not chayav kares. So why let Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika? Why are you telling me that the mechusik kippurim can go ahead and bring his carbon? Why? The mechanics don't work. The mechanics of doing one thing wrong to do one thing right when they're of equal doesn't work. We have a rule like this, guys. Essay dochalos essay. Good. We have a rule also. Essay sheyesh b'karis is doicha and essay. The fact that it carries karis with it gives it an importance. So unbelievable geschmack. I didn't bring my Amazov. I didn't bring my carbon yet. I got a carbon Pesach. Why? I can't not eat the carbon Pesach. The mitzvah has karis. Oh, 1 second. How can that? Says the kohen. How could you go ahead and bring your carbon for a zav to allow you to eat the carbon Pesach? And you're alarmed and you say, why not, kohen? my essay is stronger than your essay. Your essay to make sure there's nothing brought after the carbon tamid doesn't carry weight here. Why? I got an essay sheish b'koris. That's according to Tanakama. But like Rabbi Yishmael, B'nai Shel Rabbi Yochanan and Breika, who says it's even by a neder or a dava, with is a mitzvah SAT kachim, but it doesn't carry an isakaris with it. Why is that more important than what? Allah Hishlim finishing the carbon tamid. That's why I afraid the Gemara.
And carbon you make up. You have to change
You can't have Pesach Sheni. You don't make it up. You only
it.
Derech Rechaika, Pesach Sheni, we'll see. Yeah. No. Pesach Sheni is a waiver only for certain individuals in certain situations. If you don't bring it, you don't get it. You don't get a check. You don't get a. No, you don't. Guys, you're guessing. I'm telling you. Trust me on this. You trust me on this. You can't bring a carbon chain, right? Given. You cannot be in this situation. You can't bring a Pesach Sheni. Okay, good. Now, says the Gemara. So, Bishleim Tanakama. Okay, we have very geschmack. So, and for the Gemara, Amar Ravina, Amar Rav Chisda, Hacha. What are we dealing with over here? Bechatas ha'oif. We're dealing with chatas ha'oif askinon. Shein mizbeach el adama. Okay, guys, listen up. We have to see you. I don't see Mordechai. Carbon. We're dealing here with the Gemara just said we're dealing here with the Mitzayra. Mitzayra brings three karbanis. He brings a chatas, he brings an asham, and he brings an oila. A chatas and oila. Okay, so now an oila is an animal, and the asham is an animal. Those are animals. If he is wealthy or not poor, then the chatas is also an animal. If, however, he's poor, he brings a chatas oif. He brings a bird. What's the unique thing about the bird? It's the carbon that doesn't get burnt on the mizbeach. Again, the malik is by the oil oif also. Not the way you bring it. The malik is not the uniqueness in this case. In this case, the uniqueness is, guys, it doesn't get burnt. So very geschmack. Says you want to know this heichet timsa. You want to know a heichet timsa where a regular carbon mechusa kippurim can be brought after what the tamid. It's a mitzayra who has to bring his chatas. His chatas is poor, coming from a bird. What's the problem? It comes after what the tamid. There is no problem. Why? There's no mizbeach. It's not getting burnt. All you do is sprinkle it down. The isser olel lahashla means the last carbon to be burnt is the tamid. Guess what? You're not burning it. So Mamela, it's a Jewish legal loophole to go ahead and answer the kasha. When did Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan and Breika say his din? He didn't just say it by any carbon. He said it dafka by what? By chatas ha'oif. Why do you gain by chatas ha'oif? You're not being mivatal the assay of Allah Hishlim of going ahead and making being mivatal the carbon tamid, but being the last carbon of the day. It's a very geschmack. It's a lam d'sheteretz. Okay, here, guys, here's the problem. We assume then he brought the other two, correct? The other two you have to burn, correct? What are you going to? So what's going on here? If you forgot to bring one, he forgot to bring all of them. So your waiver works for the chatas, but it doesn't work for the oil and the ashma, which are animals, which are burnt. So that's what the Gemara is going to handle with. Says the Gemara. So what are we dealing with over here? So Amar Rav Chisda Hacha, Rabbi Yishmael ben Oishel Merach and Barak is speaking about the chatas oif askinon shein lemizbeach el adama. That Papa Amar, I feel it tema bechatas behema. You can even be speaking about chatas behema, and you're not going to burn it. Mala umelina beroisha sham mizbeach. You'll go ahead and put it on top of the mizbeach, right? And this, guys, if something's off the mizbeach, it becomes puzzle. If it's on the mizbeach, it stays good. So what you're going to do is you're going to leave it up there, and you're going to bring it the next day. So watch. What's the part of the carbon, guys? Remember we spoke about yesterday. What's the part of the carbon? Avoid the Saddam. This guy wants to eat he wants to eat any carbon, right? What's your kasha? Your kasha is that what? It's the last carbon of the day. How can you burn it? You're not going to burn it. You're going to put it on top of this mizbeach. It's type of like a sanctuary. It protects it. and you sprinkle the dam. No longer is he mechusik kippurim because he got his kapara through the zrika of the dam, and now he can go ahead and eat his carbon. He can go ahead and eat his carbon. You don't have to worry about what. You don't have to worry about burning because you're not going to burn until the next day. Fred the Gemara, ve'ika asham. According to the teretz, he said about chatas oif. You got the asham, and the asham is a burnt offering. So Bishlam Papa Hainu the Mullen, that's very good. That's speaking, you're going to put that at the top also. El Rav Chisda Mayakal Neymar. But Rav Chisda, speaking of chatas oif, how did you gain by the asham also? You're gonna have to burn it. You're gonna have to burn it. So Amri Shekarav Hashamai, it's speaking he bought his asham and anything is chatas. Fred Gemar Vika Oila. There's a third carbon by the Mitzayra, there's an Oila. The Chitema Oila Loima Akfa. You're gonna say so you don't bring the Oila, so it's not Ma'akiv. Meaning, so big spritz, excuse the pun, you didn't bring that, you didn't bring the oila. But Tanya Rabbi Shmuel ben Omer, he himself says, just like the chatas and the asham stop him from eating kachim, so to the oila stops the mitzvah from eating kachim. So l'chayra, you got a problem. Your oila, even if you bought your oila, if you bought your asham, you didn't bring the oila yet. And Rabbi Shmuel is the one who says this. What you tell me? That he bought the carbon oila. So guys, that would be the easiest case, right? Guys, he's a mitzvah. He's mechusik kippurim. He's got to eat his carbon shlamim, not Pesach. He's got to eat his carbon shlamim. So that he bought during the day, and he can't eat it. So what do? We go ahead and he brings an oila, boom, chata shlamim, boom. They do this rika, and all this before the carbon tamid. Everything is great. Post tamid, he brings the chata sa'if. Also great. Then he can eat his shlamim. Good. But what's the problem? How could you bring the oila before you bring the chatas? In the pecking order, guys, of kachim, if a guy brings the carbon oila and chatas, the chatas always goes first. And you're telling me he didn't bring the chatas over here. So how could you brought the oila? Again, in the pecking order, when you have an oila and a chatas, you're always going to bring the chatas before the oila. So Membela, how can you tell me you brought the oila? Because clearly it's speaking, you didn't bring the chatas. The same order. It says v'chitema mishakar v'oilasai. Umi kar v'oilasai koydem chatasai rishayin v'tanya v'hikr v'esasher l'chatas. Right, l'rishayna. Ma tamad laima. What's the limud? Im lalamish koydem l'oila harik faynamer. It says another pasuk v'esasheni yaseh oila. The second one you should bring an oila. Kimishpat elazeb binyanav. This is a binyanav l'chol kula. L'chol chatas sheyu koydem l'chol oila saboisim mohem. When you have a chatas, but with an oila, even if it's a chatas oif, it's going to come first. The kaimelon, yankel, I feel a chatas oif kodemis leilas behema. Even a chatas oif will come out before an leilas behema. So you got a big guy's problem. How could you not bring the? You have a problem. Okay, what's our problem? Rabbi Shmuel ben guys, look at me quickly, so I'll get you back into the tune of this. Rabbi Shmuel ben Yochanan said, "I'm a chasiki purim that brought a carbon shlamim, and there's a mitzvah for him to eat it." He's able to go ahead and bring a kapara after the Talmud. Fred the Gemara, how in the world can he do that? It's do essays that are equal. Says the Gemara, you're not being mevatel the Talmud because you're being a chatas oif. Good, chatas oif is not burnt. But we're having a problem now with the mechanics. If it's a mitzvah, there's other kabbanas also, and those kabbanas are burnt. So you can tell me he brought the asham, but there's no way in the world he brought the oila because he couldn't have brought the oila before he brought the chatas, and clearly over here he hasn't brought the chatas yet. We have this is called an ukimta. You have a brisa. When a kimta means I have to get a way out. Then they'll tell you how this works. No matter how doichik it is, as long as I have shot at getting my way out, we could. And Mandy lives with that. He's very no. He's a chill guy. You have no idea. Mandy's a chilled man. Right. So we have this is the kind. So therefore now we have a kasha. How this is working. So Amar Rava says, Rava, shiny oilas mitzayra. An oilas mitzayra is different that you can bring it after the chatas. The Rachmana Amar Amid Beis, the Torah says, Hela hakoyin es ha'oila. What does that mean? Shehela kfar. It says it didn't have to. It could have said ve'oila ya'ale, and he brings up the oila. It says ve'hela oila. Hela means it was meaning what? It was brought even before the chatas. So Arukimta goes ahead and stands. Arukimta stands, guys. The case of Benoishal Rechman and Breika. speaking about an ani, I'm sorry, that's an ani. He's bringing korban chatas. He's not being mavatal the mitzvah of burning because he's not burning it because he doesn't get anything. And he brought his oila and he brought his asham. That's what we're holding. Great. And then you got Yedias now in Kachin. You know what Mechusik Purim is? You know that the mitzvah brings 3 kabbanis, right? And you know it's one of the kabbanis that's oila v'yoyrei, depending upon his financial status. It's called a chatas oila v'yoyrei. Oila goes up, down, depending on his wealth. Amalei Rav Shemin bar Abel Rav Papa. L'didach the armit mailu umalin b'rosh shel mizbeach. Rav Papa came up with a new eitzah, right? Papa says eitzah. We're going to burn it the next day. It's left over. No, it's not left over because we're going to bring it to the top of the mizbeach, and the top of the mizbeach is going to somehow keep it clean, viable to be burnt the next day. It won't be like puzzle. It won't be puzzle. Now you say that why you bring it to the top of the mizbeach. Koimin vavdin and milsa. We're going to go get up and do something. L'kahanim the asabele de takala, the savri the yumuhu, the asi l'kature. Guys, when you went ahead and you put it on top of the mizbeach, right? You're keeping it. You're not allowed to burn it. Why? Because it came after the carbon tamid, right? You're a kohen. You're busy working. Why do you got at the top of the mizbeach? You got plates and plates and plates and plates of fats of imurim to be burnt, right? So all of these were bought before the tamid, and among them is going to be one that was bought after the tamid. You're setting the claim up for the kill. You're setting them up for burning something after the carbon tamid. That's what you're doing. You're putting something up that shouldn't be burnt at night, has to be burnt the next day. You're putting the carbon, putting it instead of a takala. You're putting a trap in front of the kohen. How could you do that? And for the Gemara, no problem. Why? Amalei kahanim's reason. Hey, Kahanim said Rabbi Papa to Rabbi Shamin. Kahanim has reason. There's reason, and therefore they'll be careful. They'll watch before they burn it, and they'll make sure that it was carbon that was bought before the tamid, not one that was bought afterwards. Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kahana. Dimri lo Rav Huna Brei Rav Nafsan Rav Papa. For Kama Dolei Miskatri Amurin Kahana Le Motzi Achli Basa. 1 second. As long as the imurim are not brought, the Kahanim can't eat the meat. The Tanya, Yachal, I might think Kahanim Rikshayim because of a shaykh. I might think the Kahanim can eat the chest and the right foot, which is the chelik that they get from the shlomim. Koydim aktaras imurim before Hashem gets his part. Amaloimer the hikter hakoyin es achelev hamizbecha. The koyin should burn the chelev on the mizbeach. For Hodor it says v'hoyachozol Aaron lebanov, right? And then it goes to Aaron and his sons. The comment the Kahanim leachli basa. And as long as the Kahanim don't eat the basa, they can't get the kapara, the Tanya. Okay, guys, listen to this kasha. Listen to the kasha. We said yesterday, guys, there are 3 parts to every carbon, every animal. There's the din of the blood, there's the din of the imurim, and there's the din of basa. The main part of the carbon is the din of blood. When the blood is done, the guy gets his kapara. So the kohen can't eat his meat, but Hashem gets his piece of the action. Hashem's piece of the action is called emurim. Good. The Baal can't eat his piece of the meat till the kohen gets his piece of the meat. So what do you have over here? You have over here a scenario that you told me. It's speaking where that you put stuff on top of the mizbeach, right? You're keeping it there, correct? Until the morning. Good. You want him to get his kapara, the owner, correct? How's he getting his kapara? Unless the emurim are burnt, the kohen can eat. The kohen can't eat, he can't get his kapara. So Mamela, that's in the carbon. The carbon is accepted, but the Indian eat kachim. Let's speak of eating kachim, right? Eating kachim. Okay. So in other words, regarding eating kachim, the chayra, that's the problem. That's the problem, right? He says no. It's a carbon that could be eaten. It says after kapara. You wouldn't have to. So therefore, if he doesn't eat, so it's a gavaldik kasha. What did you gain? And for the Gemara, Amalei kivin. Listen, guys, listen to this. Amalei kivin loy efshar. Since it's not possible to burn it because of that say of Allah Hishlim. Assume we're going to view the emurim k'misha nitmu as if they were tamei, or if they were lost. The Tanya yachal nitmu. I might think emurim they won't get tamei. Or if they're lost, I might think lo yekanim zakoyim because of shek that they can't eat. So very geschmack. Guys, in other words, when can't Aaron eat? That's when the emurim are burnable. If the emurim are not burnable, so for example, they got lost, and or they're tamei, then you could eat. Over here, let's view them as if they're tamei and lost, because you can't burn them because of the problem of Allah Hishlam. Therefore, you would be able to eat, and therefore you would get his kapar. Very geschmack. Rav Kana Rami. Rav Kana asks the stira. Ksiv, it says, "Layolin chelav chagi ad boker." You should not leave over the chelav of my carbon chagiga. We'll see what again. This is not so clear what carbon this is. Ad boker hu de layolin. You can't leave it over in the morning. Hakala laila kula yolin. You can go ahead and burn it the whole night. Good, guys. So you're burning this the whole night, correct? Uksiv, but however it says v'hikla v'chevle shlamim. Allah hishlam kol hakabonis kulon. So the last carbon that can be burnt is what? Is the carbon tamid. But over here you're telling me what? In can't burn it in the morning. Mashma the whole night you could. Mashma after the tamid you are burning something else. Who ma'asav lo? He asked the question. Who mafarik lo? It's speaking kishin et taituru. Speaking when they were you matted it. The carbonis that the dam was sprinkled before the tamid. Guys, here was the kasha. I brought a carbon tamid. Blessing I brought, and there was a carbon tamid. Now I have a carbonis that we brought afterwards, and I'm burning the fatty afterwards. You know how to burn the fatty afterwards, after the tamid. And for the Gemara, you know what it's speaking about? It's speaking about you brought these carbons before the tamid. You sprinkle it down before the tamid, and now you have all these leftover fats that you can burn at night. Right? That okay, good. But it's steering the pasuk. It's a steer in the pasuk. So we're answering the stira. The pasuk not leave over till the morning means animals that had been spritzed the dam the day before the carbon tamid was brought, and now they're left over at night. The emurim, you have to burn them at night, and they can't leave over till the morning. But when was the zrika? Before the tamid, so you don't have a problem of Allah Hishlam. That was one stira. Another stira, Rami lay Rav Safra l'Rav Ksiv. It says La Yolun Laboike Zeva Chaga Pesach. Don't leave over to the morning the carbon Pesach. Laboike Hu de La Yolun Hakala La Yolun, but the whole night you could leave it over. I have a Ksiv. Now, so guys, when are you burning it? Guys, when are you burning the carbon Pesach? You're burning it in Pashtus. You're burning it on Yontif. You can't, right? You're burning it on Yontif. When did you bring it? When was the dam? On Erev Yontif. So that's choil. So you have a carbon choil. If the dam was gone ahead and it was sprinkled on your dalid, it's considered a carbon choil. The Gemara is going to have a problem. How could you burn a carbon choil on Yontif? Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. It says one hand, do not leave over the Zevach carbon Pesach lebaika, hudla yolin, hakala laila, the whole night yolin. But before the morning, you better be sure it's burned. Vaksiv oila shabbat b'shabbatai. What can you burn on Shabbos? The carbon tamid that's born on Shabbos. Like oila schayil b'Shabbos. What about an oila that was bought during the week? Friday, you bought a carbon Friday, guys. Friday, you can't burn it. You can't burn it on Shabbos. Like oila schayil b'Yontif. You bought a carbon oil on Yontif. You can't burn on Yontif. Guys, the carbon Pesach, since the zrika of the dam was done on chayil, it has a din of carbon chayil. So you see, you can't. So how in the world are you able to burn the carbon Pesach on Yontif? Amalei for Ramya Nehalei. So Rav told Rav Safra, it was already asked by Rav Ada Bar Chia Rav Avohu. Rav Ada Bar Chia asked Rav Avohu, the Shani Lei Hacha, and gave him the following carrots. Hacha be'arba asa shechalias b'Shabbos askinan. We're speaking about Pesach that fell out on Shabbos. Now, so when did this Zrika take place? It fell out on Shabbos. When did this Yud Dalit fell out on Shabbos? When did this Zrika take place? On Shabbos. On Shabbos. So it's not a carbon chayil. So the Zrika took place on Shabbos, but mainly you can burn it on Yontif. You can you're burning Saturday night. After Saturday night to Sunday morning, right? You can burn it. So it's speaking about Arba Asr Chalias b'Shabbos Askinan. The Chelvei Shlamim craving b'Yontif. Amalei. So Rav Safra told Rav, Mishum the Chelvei Shlamim craving b'Yontif. On the Nikim V'Nemalei the Haikra b'Arba Asr Chalias b'Shabbos. Guys, we just had a Gemara in Rabbi Shmuel Benoi. We said Stein in Rukimta, right? We said you wake up in the middle of the night and say, "What's Pshat Rabbi Shmuel?" You're going to say, Rabbi Stern, there's three kabbanis, there's an oila, there's a shlam, an oila is an oila, and there's an asham, and there's a chatas, and speaking about chatas oif, and therefore it's not a problem of Allah. That's what. when you have a brisa, you can sign the brisa in a specific case. When you have a pasuk in Chumash, l'chorah, the pasuk in Chumash is speaking universally. You're going to sign a pasuk in Chumash like this? Yeah, this pasuk in Chumash that says that the Korban Pesach you can't leave over till the morning. You have to burn it at night. You know what that's speaking about? A Korban Pesach that was born on Shabbos. So you're setting a pasuk in one hechatimsa. That's not the norm. That's what he asked him right away. How can you say that's pshat in the pasuk? The Torah is a bright kite. It speaks to the universal. You tell me one pasuk is speaking about one scenario. That's the only scenario that could be. This is what he answered him. He answered him, Amalei. So Rav told him, Safra, I think, Shafke lekra, leave the pasuk alone. It answers itself up. In other words, you have no other way out. This dasid does. So again, you have just the chazir. But let's go over some of these sites we saw this evening. We saw the concept of mechusik kippur. Before that, the korban tamid in the morning is the first thing that's brought, and no other korban is brought before. The bookend is the korban tamid in the afternoon. Nothing's brought after, with the exception of the korban pesach. There are other avodas done afterwards, right? The avodas done is such as the kairos and burning and lighting the menorah. We have a chalukei deis whether Pesach was brought before that or after that. There's a Pesach, but then the Pesach was brought even after the burning of the menorah. We saw what a mechusik Purim is. We saw that that's something that emanates from the body. They can't eat kachim until what? Until they bring their carbon, especially unique carbon. We had the Tanakh saying where they're going to miss the carbon Pesach because the mechusik Purim will bring that unique carbon. We have Rabbi Shmuel ben Yechon Broika who says that we'll bring it even if they won't be able to touch him. And we set the nine because of the kasha. It's an asay and asay. We set the nine that it's speaking about chatas oif. And we said that again, it's speaking of chatas oif. And you brought the asham, you brought the chatas, a idea that even though you say chatas is brought before an oila by mitzvah, it's possible to bring an oila first, and then we'll wish you a good evening.
How can you know that on the Shabbat? You have to